Hello and welcome. I'm Steve Clemens, editor-at-large of The Hill. Thank you for joining us for Results 2020 and the 50-plus voter. I'd like to thank our sponsor, AARP, for their support of today's program. It's one of my favorite programs. I love knowing I'm 50-plus now. I love to know what I did in this election. So we're going to talk a lot about that. This is our second event in a three-part series taking a close look at the 50-plus voter. Election night has come and gone. 50-plus voters were seen as the linchpin to winning many races in battleground states. Women over 50 have been a particular interest to pollsters in the lead up to the election. But just how much did this community affect the results? To help us find out, we're going to be joined by a fantastic lineup of speakers, including current and former members of Congress, political analysts, and voting rights advocates. Before we get underway, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us at The Hill Events using the hashtag The Hill Older Voters. We're broadcasting live and we'll be taking your questions throughout the program. As with any live stream, if you have any trouble with the video, just refresh it. I'm told it will fix everything. Good luck with that. My first guests today are Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky and Congresswoman Doris Matsui. I've enjoyed talking to both of them on many different subjects, health, the economy. Today we're going to talk about this election, COVID, and that whole realm. They are co-chairs of the House Democratic Caucus Task Force on Aging and Families, where they've been working on behalf of older Americans. Representative Schakowsky is also part of the House Democratic leadership, serving as a senior chief deputy whip. And Congresswoman Doris Matsui is a senior member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Good to see you both. Before I get going, we're all in this COVID era looking for whatever distractions we can. I've been looking at pets of members of Congress. Oh. So Donna Shalala, her new little dog, a rescue, is named Fauci. Jan Schakowsky, I know you got Eleanor and Franklin. They sound like great dogs. Are they sweet?
Eleanor, I just have to tell you, was voted the cutest dog on Capitol Hill 2 years ago. I was her campaign manager. And
I think Donna Shalala is trying to go for that. So the big question is, Congresswoman Matsui, do you have a pet you'd like to throw into this today?
I do have a pet, and I'm not usually a cat owner, but I have a cat named Roscoe. And Roscoe is a huge Maine Coon cat who knows that he's probably the most beautiful cat around. And so it takes a lot to get him interested in anybody else but himself. And that's kind of like a voter himself. So, I try very hard with him.
It's fun. I just like to humanize these a little bit and hear about this because I think we should create a calendar or something out of all your pets. But let me just start out with you, Doris. Let me ask you for a moment about when we think about we've just come through election. Again, the most reliable voter, the voter that went out, are those voters over 65, those voters over 50. They say they're going to vote. They turn out to vote. But right now, I'm not interested in who voted where. I'm interested in what do they care about. We're in the era of COVID. When you're talking to your constituents about COVID, the economy, what is on their dashboard that they're telling you they want help on?
Well, exactly what you said. It's the healthcare, which is COVID now, and the economy is really retirement security and just security. Because when we're talking about older Americans, we're not just talking about them, we're talking about their caregivers and their families also. So it's very broad, and everyone is concerned about COVID now. And that means that this election was really about healthcare and COVID. And so here we are today with a lot of a challenge ahead of us because it's not only COVID, but how do we move from here as far as economy and jobs? And that is central to what we're trying to do. Jan and I have been involved in this for quite some time, but this is actually, I believe, and Jan will probably say this too, the first time when there has been such attention paid to people over 50 and what they do. And I am really glad that this election has proven that they understand that we think about them and what their concerns are. So, here we are today. We have a lot to do after this election, and we're ready to go.
Thank you. Representative Schakowsky, do you agree with Doris Matsui that now you're seeing legislators pay attention and hear older voters? Because when we did this program we put together, I also could have, labeled it America's most taken for granted voter. That in fact that we talk a lot about, orienting policy. But I'm just wondering if what Doris Matsui put on the table, do you think there's now a structural attention being paid in this time of crisis to the needs of older voters, older Americans?
Well, I got more calls about being able to vote and vote by mail, and complaints about the head of the Postal Service, DeJoy, making it harder trying to make it harder for people to vote. But beyond that, I absolutely think, especially with this new president-elect, that we are definitely going to see more attention on older voters. We do not have a long-term care policy in the United States of America. We need one, and we certainly have seen older Americans, who are the growingest population right now in our country, very important as voters, as consumers, and as Doris is right, families are very concerned about the health and welfare of their older relatives. So it's very, very important. I think we are going to see more attention. Yes, I do.
So let me ask you both, and we'll go to Representative Matsui first. How solid, I don't know how to put it other than how solid is the social contract for older Americans? When you look at healthcare, costs of healthcare, when you look at, I would say, ageism in the workplace. Nancy Lamont, who's going to be on a little bit, said, the future of retirement, wake up, is work. So more and more Americans are living longer, more and more Americans are working longer. And I'm just interested in what are our blind spots that need to be fixed when it comes to that social contract with older Americans? Doris?
Well, I really believe that the attention paid this time has been entirely on the families themselves, because they've had the burden of how we move forward. And when we saw what's happening in some of these long-term facilities and grandparents not being able to even see their grandchildren, and all of us too not being able to do normal things, I believe that social contract is still there, that compact that we've had from years back. But now it's going to be strengthened even more, because this is another time we're dealing with. And I think particularly with this COVID, we saw the disparities in healthcare, not only through gender, but also through economic status and also through age too. And so I believe that what we're going to be doing now is moving forward to attack some of these issue areas. Jan and I both worked on the ACA when we first wrote that. And we knew at the time it wasn't perfect, but it was a start and beginning of giving healthcare to everyone. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, now we have to lower the cost of healthcare and make it more efficient and sustainable over time. And we couldn't do all of that, but now is the opportunity, because we did things during this time that we couldn't do before. For instance, the fact is that we couldn't get in and go to see our doctors, and so many of the older people couldn't do that anyway. We were expanding telehealth, which is so important for the entire population, particularly for seniors who can't leave their homes, and being able to use a device from home to talk about what is wrong and actually measuring sort of heart, your pulse and everything else. So to me, it has given us an opportunity where everybody understands now the importance of healthcare in a crisis like this. And we're going to keep that going, because it not only is for now, but it's for, it's not over with yet. We still are dealing with whether we have the therapeutics or the vaccine, and we have to make sure that it's available for everyone. So this is not ending at all. And the senior population, particularly Medicare, is really in the center part of this too. We have to make sure that there are no copays on this when we have the vaccines. There are any number of ways that we're going to be engaged in this. And Jan and I both know the importance of Medicare and the fact that they really do set the basis for a lot of things that move forward.
Well, thank you. Jan, let me ask you the same question. And, before we get there, I'd say, every Republican I talk to, every Democrat I talk to has said telehealth has been a game changer. It's made people feel more connected. But there are concerns about the ongoing reimbursements for that down the road. So I guess I'd ask you the same thing: is what kinds of things do we need to do to seriously shore up that social contract with older Americans?
First of all, let me give you a little bit more of a political answer. It would be at any party's peril to ignore the senior vote. It is growing in numbers and percentage of the people who vote. Obviously, we want to get our young people out too, but it's really the seniors that made the difference. And what we've seen is more and more seniors, older Americans, moving toward the Democrats. In 2000. in 16, it was about 5% of the Democrats lost by about 5% of the older Americans, and now it's down, we'll see at the end of the day, between 1 and 3%. And, when you look at the demographics, we're seeing, yes, that white people more voted for Donald Trump, at 98% or 92% rather of African Americans and 58% of Latinx people voted for Biden, and so you just can't ignore these voters, and I think Doris did a great job of outlining some of the issues that we care about. The cost of prescription drugs is absolutely huge, and we may get a vaccine that is free during the COVID time to all people. But now we're learning more that it can be a pre-existing condition, that there are follow-up problems that have come from COVID. And about 40% nationally of the people who have died, even though there are a small percent of people who have gotten COVID, are in nursing homes. We have to deal with this problem, I'm telling you. This, all too often they have seemed like death traps. So we have a policy crisis right now when it comes to nursing homes, and we have to deal with that.
Well, I think it's both clear from both of you that this isn't going away. These issues, challenges, they're going to still be percolating with us. We're taking questions from the audience. We have a question from Joan Tobin. Joan?
I have two questions. One has to do with an assessment of the hopefully potential stimulus package, timing and contents, and the politics of it. The second question is to do with the impact that the behavior of our president is having, and the Republicans, is and will have on our democratic institutions, subject which is of interest not only to an older age group for itself, but also for its impact on future generations.
Thanks, Joan. Jan, quick thoughts?
Sure. First of all, John, thank you for that question. I think there's still a chance for a stimulus package, and we're hoping that it will definitely include not only crushing the virus, but healthcare in general, which of course is very important to our, and I say our, because I'm one, older citizens and voters. But also, I think our democracy is pretty strong. And I think that at this very moment with this president, many of us feel that it is in greater peril than it has been before. But the election results, I think, lead to the conclusion that Americans know how to make change. And so I'm really not that worried about it, but we have many opportunities to make the Voting Rights Act back to where it was, and all of the justice issues that we can deal with, that we're going to have to deal with, and certainly the health care and jobs issues. So I think we're going to be fine.
Well, thank you. Doris, I'm going to give you the last word in response to Joan Tobin.
Well, I thank you very much, Joan, and I really believe with you that this is sort of an opportunity now too. I believe that we will make some progress on some stimulus during this lame duck. Fingers crossed, obviously, but we already have a plan for that anyway. And I must say about the democracy, it's not only for all of us as over 50, but also I remember my grandson worried about that. He's 14 and wondered about democracy. I think the voters stood up this time and said, we really need to move forward and honor our institutions. So we have the possibility now, and I believe a strong possibility with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who are already steady and competent and moving ahead already. So I, like Jan, feel very hopeful, very confident that we're going to be moving forward in the way America will always move forward. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you both, Jan Schakowsky from Illinois, Doris Matsui from California. I always learn something from both of you. And I also just want to give you both credit that when we're talking about this stuff, a lot of times it just seems like we're talking about policy that doesn't, I mean, we're talking about real people, real human beings that are dealing with tough circumstances right now. And I feel the tension from both of you, and I want to say I appreciate that. Thank you both so much. Jan Schakowsky, Doris Matsui. I hope we can see you again soon.
Thank you, Steve.